Hello, my name is Luis Manta. Today I will be discussing technology and how it affects our world. Due to many changes in technology, some tech giant companies, for instance Microsoft, may cease to exist in the near future because of many of the ever-changing things that are happening in technology today. Technologies like open source, cloud computing, and developments of hardware and the Internet of Things will have major effects on the tech industry. In this presentation, I will explain open source, cloud computing, and all the recent developments in hardware and the Internet of Things. For those of you who do not know, open source is a software that has a source code included. This means that anyone can modify, alter, or change it to either make it better or change it to the exact specifications that they prefer. Open source contradicts the methods in which software has been most prevalently created and used in the past decade. Originally, the source code was created by the programmer and then would go through a compiler that would translate the code so that the computer would be able to understand it. But in turn, this would make it impossible for anyone to modify it because they never had the original source code. Linux is a company who contradicted those original thoughts. They decided to make a software program in which their programmers released the source code so anyone could modify or change it to what they'd like it to be. Another thing Linux did was they made their software free, which was absolutely unheard of in the software world. Now, today, millions of programmers log on and try and change Linux's software in order to incorporate the wide things that technology can do. In turn, Linux accepts or rejects these changes, and then it makes the program better. Linux has grown faster than any other software company previously. Microsoft was the past leader in software. They created Microsoft Office. Microsoft sold their programs for money, and they also didn't give the source code out. Before, that was commonplace because no one created their own software like Linux did. Now Microsoft is predicted to start tanking because no one wants to pay for software that they can just buy. Many big companies like Google and Amazon have started using Linux because it's free. The next topic I'm going to talk about is cloud computing. Cloud computing is the unified sharing of software and information through the Internet. The cloud has revolutionized how we use, share, and store information through the Internet. Cloud computing is about converged infrastructures and shared services. With cloud computing, local computers no longer have to do the work when it comes to applications. There's a network of computers that store data, which now allows your computer not to have to do that. One of the first companies to start using cloud computing was Netflix. They experienced problems when they realized that their few computers couldn't hold up the amount of movies that were being produced on their site. So they decided to use the cloud where everyone could access their movies and it was backed up. Since 2009, Netflix has been using the cloud and it's skyrocketed since then, growing to obtain more of the market share than anyone else. Since then, there's been a lot of other big companies using the cloud. For example, Google and Apple. Another big company that has started using the cloud is Amazon. All these companies have started backing up their data using the cloud and using the cloud so that in order for people to be able to access their own information online. This has become the new trend because it allows your hardware to be smaller and work faster. Which leads me to my next topic. My next topic is computer hardware. Computer hardware are the physical components that make up the machine. All the pieces of computer hardware can be touched, whereas computer software and programs on the computer cannot. Hardware essentially runs the software on the computer. There are many different hardwares that can be placed inside or outside the computer to do different functions. Some people add more hardware or take away hardware based on what they want to do with their computer. This shows one of the first computers on the left. It was as big as a room and could do about as many functions as a TI-83 calculator you have now. As you can see, it had lots of hardware. IBM made one of the first personal computers. The hardware on the IBM computer, as you can see, is much less than the first computer, but when you compare it to today's computing devices we use, it actually is much bulkier. For example, the monitor is very big and it has a large keyboard. Now, when we look at what we use today, you can see a tablet made by Apple and you can see a Samsung Chromebook. Both of these devices are very small because nowadays hardware has much more memory and is much smaller than it used to previously be, so you can have a lot more functions on it. With even phone devices now, you can see how small computers have gotten. The next topic I'm going to talk about is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things describes the future of technology and how physical tools we use will interact with it. The Internet of Things is actually a very not modern idea, but it's starting to be applied in our modern world. In 1980, Carnegie Mellon developed a Coke machine that would tell you how many Cokes were left in the machine and how cold they were. Since then, and especially in recent times, we've started to add to the development of things in our household that connect to the Internet. Gartner and ABI Research believe that about 30 billion devices will be connected to the Internet in the next 10 years. Right now, there's only a couple billion. The one problem with this is that we have IPv4, which contains all the IP addresses for every single device that connects to the Internet. The problem with this is IPv4 only allows for 4 billion devices to be connected to the Internet. With a recent upgrade of IPv6, tech companies believe that there will be much more than 30 billion devices able to connect to the Internet. These are some examples that include the Internet of Things. They believe that there will be stoves that will give you certain recipes brought up on a screen like a tablet so you can see what you're cooking. They also will have fridges that show you the longevity of the food you put in there so you know when it's going to expire. Many innovations like this are going to be coming up soon, and it will all be connected to the Internet and then therefore connected to your smartphone to let you know when these things are going to happen. Next, I'm going to talk about all the companies being affected by all these changes. The one that stands out the most is Microsoft, because Microsoft is a software company. Now with open source and all the free tools being allocated with it, Microsoft seems to be in deep trouble because they charge for their software. Another problem is Microsoft does not use the cloud. Recently, Microsoft started using the cloud, but they are so far behind that it seems almost impossible that they will be able to catch up. Although Microsoft is a very big tech company and it would be very surprising if they went under, we'll have to see what developments Microsoft does in order to compete with Linux and the other cloud-using companies. In the hardware department, two big companies that seem to be being affected are Intel and AMD. Until now, Intel had the biggest percent of the market share in all types of personal computers. The one problem is AMD owns ARM technology. ARM technology is what's now being used in most tablets and phones. This is a small chip or processor which is found on the motherboard that runs basically the entire computer. The problem being is that ARM technology runs a bit better and is much cheaper than the old Intel chip. In order to compete, Intel is having to use all their technology in order to create a new chip. Although Intel does still have most of the market share, they do not seem to be in as much trouble as Microsoft. Intel is applying engineers to create a new, cheaper chip, and they are also buying a lot of the companies to put their chips inside of their devices. Therefore, many people don't really know what's going to happen in this market. The final company I'm going to talk about is Cisco. Cisco really has a hold on the Internet of Things. Ever since wireless came out, Cisco has been an innovator in creating new ideas and coming up with new things. All types of the household appliances that are being innovated are mainly done by Cisco. Another company I want to talk about is Google. Google is another company that's branching out into the Internet of Things. Although most of their things haven't come on the market yet, Google has things like Google Glass and the Google cars that drive themselves that are all part of the Internet of Things. Although we haven't seen very many developments in the consumer market yet, the Internet of Things is something that will probably branch out in the next couple years and have a big effect on the technology market. In conclusion, I've spoken about all the different types of big things in the tech industry, and I've discussed open source, cloud computing, and the developments of hardware and software and the Internet of Things. I hope I have helped explain these things and talked about the companies that it will be affecting. I hope this has helped inform you on these situations and has given you some opinions on the companies that are being affected. Thank you.